What's up, guys? This is Ben with Naturally Nerdy. Today I'm going to take you through how I make my combs. What I'm doing here is I have set up a jig so that I can cut the teeth out of the combs, and I'm setting it up so that I can cut out the outer edges of the teeth, and this is basically just a thicker part of the comb that's going to kind of protect the teeth. And so we're going to make that cut, and while we do, I'm going to go kind of bring you through what I use. I use a 10-inch table saw, and I have built a table saw sled, is what it's called, and then I just clamp my jig to the sled. I use a 7.25-inch Diablo blade, and the reason why I use such a small blade is because the kerf of the blade is a little bit thinner than the 10-inch blades are, and the kerf of the blade is just the thickness of the blade. Um, the how I made my table saw sled was I used a piece of MDF and a couple 2x4s, and I squared up those 2x4s, which are what is called the fences, and then my runners are made out of hardwood, which I used walnut for these. Um, these combs are also made out of walnut, and I'm just going to run you through how to make one of them, even though you can see two of them on the screen. Up next, we're going to bring them over to the belt sander, and we're just going to shape them. Now to shape these, what you want to do is you basically just want to sharpen up the edge of the teeth. And we're going to go through and sharpen each tooth here in just a little bit, but this is going to kind of shape the comb and take the rough edges away and the sharp edges. And you can see on the bottom there's a few sharp edges, but we're going to clean those up and make sure that the other that the sides are rounded off a little bit, and we'll do some detail work a little bit later, but this is just the rough shape of the comb. Up next, we're going to be putting it into the vise, and we're going to be sharpening each one of the teeth. And this is kind of a tedious process, so if you're not a patient person, um, I don't know, you can try it. It's not a big deal. Anyway, so what I'm using is 220 grit emery cloth, and the reason why I use emery cloth instead of sandpaper is because it's a lot more resilient, and you can use it for a longer time. The Even though the sandpaper kind of clogs up a little bit, you can always clean it out with, hitting it on your workbench, or um, with a piece of wax or a vacuum or something like that. It's not that big of a deal. So we're gonna go through and sharpen each one of these teeth, and I like my teeth to be quite sharp because what that does is it actually goes through the hair rather than pushing it out of the way. And you'll notice if you don't sharpen your teeth enough, it will actually just push the hair out of the way and it won't actually go through. And I'm noticing that I'm saying actually a lot. So we're going to go through and sharpen all these teeth up. And then afterwards, we're going to give it a nice fine sanding with some 220 grit sandpaper. And while we've got it in the vise, we're going to soften up the edges just a little bit more and shape the outside just a tiny bit more. At least the outside of the teeth protectors. I don't even know what to call those. I should probably know that, huh? As for my vise, all I use is a metal vise with some 3/4 inch pine, and what that pine does is it pads the comb from getting marks from the vise jaws. And yeah. So like I said, up next we're going to really sand this thing down and get it nice and smooth, because once we finish it, we can't sand it anymore. And so we're going to take some 220. I only use 220. You don't really need to go up any higher than that. And the belt sander gives it a somewhat decent finish anyway. So after this, we're going to lay it down and we're going to use some fractionated coconut oil to finish this. And then we're going to condition it with some beeswax and fractionated coconut oil. And the reason why I say fractionated is because it is a medium chain triglyceride oil, and you want to make sure you use one of those. And some other examples of that would be like mineral oil. I think you can use castor oil. If you just Google cutting board oils, you'll find a whole slew of them. And then I condition it with this beeswax blend, because what the beeswax does is it protects it from UV rays, and it protects it from water, and all this stuff just kind of protects it from mold and from rot. And the good thing about this is that the beard balms and the oils that I make, they all have coconut oil and they all have medium chain triglyceride oils in them. And so even if you use it with a balm, it's not going to rot, nothing's going to happen to it, and it'll last for quite a long time because it's a hardwood. One thing that I forgot to mention was that I cut the combs with the grain. If you cut them against the grain, they will actually be really um, prone to splitting, and the teeth will break pretty easily. Uh, so you want to cut them with the grain because it's just a little bit stronger, and then make sure you have about a half an inch above the teeth to keep it together. So this is a finished comb. Thanks for watching. I hope this is helpful, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks, guys.